What happens when we die? I mean, it's probably the biggest question we can ever ask, right? Well, today we're going to explore a spiritual perspective that doesn't just try to comfort us, it completely reframes what we think of as the end of life. It's a fear that pretty much everyone feels at some point. This deep, deep anxiety about the one thing we know is inevitable. But what if the real source of that fear isn't actually death itself? What if it's just a huge misunderstanding of what death truly is? So to really get our heads around this different way of looking at things, we first have to figure out, why are we so scared in the first place? Let's unpack the real roots of this universal anxiety. Okay, so this perspective suggests our biggest fear isn't about just not existing anymore. It's about accountability. It's this deep-seated belief that after we die, we're going to have to stand and be judged for our actions, our mistakes, our sins. That right there is supposedly the real source of all our dread. But you know that fear of judgment? It's really just one piece of the puzzle. The bigger issue, according to this view, is that we're basically working with a flawed definition of death, one that's been shaped by myths and, honestly, our own resistance to facing the truth. So it seems our fear is kind of this complex cocktail, right? You've got the fear of judgment, for sure, but then there's also our intense attachment to this life, to this body. We're also surrounded by all sorts of misinformation about what's next. And, we just don't like change. But maybe the most powerful ingredient of all? We live in a state of total denial. And this quote really gets to the heart of the paradox, doesn't it? Logically, we all know we're mortal, but we live our day-to-day lives as if we're going to be here forever. So when death finally shows up, it doesn't feel like a natural part of life. It feels like a shocking, personal attack. All right, so we've taken a hard look at the fear. Now let's explore the incredible idea that aims to completely dissolve it. This core revelation that reframes death not as an end, but as something else entirely. A change. Sometimes a single story can explain a huge, profound truth better than any long lecture. And this one comes from the life of the great spiritual master Sri Ramakrishna. It takes place in the moments right after his physical body passed away, as his wife, Sarada Devi, began to mourn him. So the story goes, just as Sarada Devi was preparing to follow the traditions of widowhood, Ramakrishna appeared to her and said this. He told her he wasn't gone, he was still alive. He had simply transitioned, like walking from one room in a house into the next. That's it. And this is the absolute heart of the message. The soul, from this viewpoint, is immortal. Its journey is this continuous, unbroken line. So death isn't the final stop. It's not even a pause in the journey. It's just a turn in the road. So, okay, if death is just a transition, a journey from one room to another, it begs the question, right? What's that next room like? Where does the soul actually go after it leaves the physical body? The metaphor used here is so simple, but so powerful. Our body is just a set of clothes. And when your clothes get old and worn out, you don't fall apart and grieve. You just change into a new set. The soul does the exact same thing. It sheds its gross physical body for a new, subtle, non-physical form. This amazing question from the yogi Patanjali really explains our attachment, doesn't it? We've become so used to the cage, our body, our worldly life, that even when the door to total freedom swings open, we hesitate. We cling to what's familiar, even when it's limiting us. And what's waiting beyond that cage door? Well, the destination is described as a subtle world, a plane of existence that is far more radiant, more blissful, more joyful than anything we can even imagine here. It's a realm of pure freedom where the soul is finally unburdened and can experience its true, limitless nature. So if death is actually a transition to a much more blissful state, you gotta wonder, have we been fearing the completely wrong thing this whole time? And that brings us to the final and most crucial reframing of our whole perspective. This is where the whole argument just pivots. What if we've been focusing all our fear and anxiety on the wrong target? The real danger, from this perspective, isn't the natural process of dying. It's the baggage we carry with us that can actually hurt the soul's journey. At the end of the day, these are the only things that can really block our path. It's our negative actions, our deep-seated habits and tendencies, sometimes called vasanas, and our destructive desires. These are the heavy burdens that weigh the soul down and can prevent it from moving toward the light. And this really is the ultimate takeaway.
For someone who lives a good life, a life focused on overcoming those negative tendencies, death is totally transformed. It stops being this terrifying, unknown thing. Instead, it becomes a welcome, auspicious, and even joyful graduation.
And so, we're left with this incredibly powerful question. If death isn't really an ending, but just the doorway, how does that change the way we live right now? It completely reframes our entire existence, doesn't it? It shifts our focus from fearing the end to building a life that's worth carrying forward. What becomes truly important? And what can you finally let go of?